All right, thank you so much for doing that. So we're going to move on and start actually looking at um, some of the tools and information that we actually learned during the 6-week session. And so we're going to start having a look at the symptom cycle. So when we're living with a long-term health condition, we may have many symptoms and problems. You can see some of these symptoms on this cycle. All the things on the cycle can contribute to or cause health problems, worries, and challenge our ability to enjoy life. And if they occur, they can feed on each other. If we let them, these challenges prevent us from thriving. Depression can cause fatigue, fatigue can cause stress, stress can cause sleep problems, and so on. This becomes a vicious cycle that gets worse unless we find a way to break it. No matter where we break the cycle, we can stop things from getting worse and improve our lives. If we understand how these things on the cycle contribute to increased symptoms and problems, we can learn techniques that help break the cycle at these various points and overcome our challenges. Almost all of us have long-term health condition-related problems. These can range from pain, not being able to communicate with family and friends about our long-term health conditions, to being embarrassed because we have to take medication in public. We may think these are unsolvable, but problem solving is the first step in becoming an active self-manager. In fact, problem solving can help break the symptom cycle at almost any point. So we are going to just review the problem solving in a few minutes. This is something that you did quite often in your 6-week workshop. And so we are going to revisit that skill in a moment. So you all probably remember your self-management toolbox, hopefully. So this is something, these are several different tools that you would have learned how to use during your 6-week session. And they're all very important. They may not all be applicable all the time. So some may be relevant at some points in your life and others may be helpful at other points. So we're just going to have a quick look at some of these tools and just what they meant to us during the 6-week session. So physical activity is really important, and we're going to talk more in depth about that at the end of the session, and can look a bit different for everyone depending on your needs and abilities. We will look at this topic more in depth, as I said, at the close of the webinar. If you require medications, we know it is important to take them as prescribed and under the guidance of your healthcare provider. Managing fatigue can include things like ensuring you receive adequate sleep as much as possible. That's always a challenge for many people, as well as using pacing. Better breathing is important for all of us. Shortness of breath can happen for many reasons, including things like anxiety and exercise. When we are living with chronic conditions, it can feel very isolating and emotionally difficult much of the time. It's therefore really important that we understand that these emotions are normal and that there are steps we can take to support us in seeking help to manage these difficult and complex emotions. Problem solving, especially brainstorming, is a skill that is practiced very often in the 6-week workshop. It is important that when we are facing challenges related to our health, we have skills to be able to explore what options are available to us. We also learned how using our mind can be a powerful tool in coping with pain and improving relaxation. As a group, you looked at the importance of communication. This included how to effectively communicate your needs and information on your condition to friends and family, as well as how we can improve communication with our healthcare team. Lastly, we looked at current recommendations for healthy eating and the importance this has for both our overall health and for managing our chronic conditions. There's a lot to remember when it comes to managing our health, and it can feel overwhelming at times. It is important to break it down into things that are important to us and that are manageable. If you'd like more information or support on any of these topics, we do have more resources available. So you can certainly follow up with us via email, and we're happy to provide that information to you. Are there any questions so far before I move on? Okay. So if you do have any questions at any time, just feel free to share those with us. So we're actually going to have a look at a new tool now, and this is called a decisional balance tool. You may have seen these at some point in your life. It's really sort of a structured pros and cons list. And the reason we really like these is oftentimes when we're thinking about making a change in life, any change, whether it's related to our health or our jobs or anything in life when we're facing a change, we often experience a lot of ambivalence around that. And change is very hard, and it's hard for a reason. So when we're making a change, that means other things are going to have to shift around in our life. And so that makes it difficult. And we do know that in order for us to successfully make changes in our lives, they need to be really important to us. And we need to have addressed some barriers. And so this tool really does help us. One, make sure that if we're considering a change and we're still on the fence, so we're not sure if we're quite ready to, let's say, make an action plan around that change, this tool can be really helpful in exploring, why is this important to me? What are some of the challenges or barriers I may face when I go to make that change? And what are some of the reasons I want to make this change in the first place? So it's really, as I said, a bit of a fancy pros cons list that really helps us work through that. It's hard to really sit down sometime and think about how to approach a problem or, how to approach even where to start with that change. And really, at the end of the day, is it really important to me? Because as I said, if we don't really have that conviction and that change isn't very important to us, it will make it even more challenging to really implement into our lives. So we're going to have a look through this. So I'm going to use my own example, and I'm just going to take you through it step by step. Now, in that dialog box where you answered the polls for me, and thank you, you have some handouts. So there's 3 handouts there. There's a decisional balance tool. There's an action plan form, which we're going to touch base on in a minute. And there's also a 3rd handout that accompanies the physical activity presentation that we'll have at the close of the session. So you can certainly print this tool off. It's a great tool. I'd recommend printing it, or you can save it to your computer, and then you can work through it and use that as a guide. We actually have reusable copies of this as well that have handy magnetic backings on them, so you can stick them on your fridge. So it's hard to ignore. And we're happy to send those to you. So if you would like a copy of that, please email us and we will follow up with you. So my change that I would like to do is I need to incorporate some more green vegetables into my diet throughout the day. So right now I'm currently only, I find I can get them into maybe 1 meal some of the time, but I'm really having trouble with that. So this is something that I've been thinking about doing. I'm kind of on the fence because, some days I'm keen to do it, and other times I don't follow through and I'll forget about it for months. And so I would like to sort of work through this on this tool. So each quadrant, let me start again. The tool is kind of divided into 2 halves. So we have reasons that we want to stay the same, so not make any changes, and then reasons for making changes on the right. And then each quadrant is numbered. So we start on the left side with number 1 and 2, and then we move over to the right side over here with number 3 and 4. So I'm going to start in the top left quadrant here. So good things are staying about the same are there's no cost increase to my current grocery bill. Healthy food can sometimes be more expensive than some other choices, and so I'm a bit worried about that cost increase. I don't have to think about it, so I don't have to spend more time in the grocery store. I don't have to think about how I'm going to go about this or what I might look at incorporating into my diet. Moving on to the next piece. So not so good things about staying the same, is that I really don't think that I'm getting enough greens in my current diet, and this does concern me. There's also a lack of variety in my diet, so I find there's not a lot of color, and I tend to eat the same things every day just because it's easy, and I know that's not the best. So these are some of the things that aren't so great about staying the same. Some reasons for making the change up here on the top right. So not so good things about changing are that possible increase to my grocery bill. And I also haven't liked a lot of green vegetables in the past. I don't really enjoy the taste, and I don't find it that appealing. So that hasn't really motivated me to want to change my diet very much. So lastly, when I'm thinking about good things about making this change and incorporating more greens, I know vegetables are really high in vitamins. It would improve my iron levels. So I know a lot of greens, I've been told, can be really high in iron, and that's something that I've always had a concern about. So my iron levels are pretty low. it is a chance to explore some new foods. I'm sure there's a lot of green vegetables and leafy greens that I haven't necessarily tried and that I might like more. And finally, just down here at the bottom of the tool, what is my confidence level? So right now, I'd say it's about between a 6 and a 7 in terms of making this change. Not quite 100% there. I think there's some of those barriers just that I need to work through. So this possible increase has me a bit concerned. And just the fact that I don't really like green veggies all that much. Is there any questions just before I move on to this problem solving? Okay. So I do have those 2 concerns. So if I'm just trying to take a step back, and obviously this would take me longer than 10 seconds, but just for the interest of the tool. So I could do this with a friend, my partner, you know, someone maybe in the same situation to reach out if I don't have any ideas of mine, you know, to do some brainstorming and to problem solve around those 2 issues. So one option is that I could replace some of the unhealthier foods that I buy regularly with those greens to reduce any potential increase in cost to my grocery bill, which also leads to me eating healthier as well. And I know I've heard a lot of people make a lot of smoothies, and so we can put spinach or kale or something like that in with some fruit, and that might help me to hide that taste that I don't really enjoy. So now that I've gone through my decisional balance tool and I've sort of worked through some of those barriers that I face, I do feel that this is something that's pretty important to me. You know, it helped with my low iron. It's a chance to improve my diet. You know, I think there's a reasonable way to do that without raising that cost and avoiding those vegetables that I didn't really like before that I tried. So I think I'm ready to put together an action plan around how I'm actually going to do this. So it's always great that when we have a change, we now know that it's important to us. But then actually putting it into action can sometimes be the tricky part. So in your 6-week sessions, we did, you would have reviewed this and you would have made an action plan each week on something that was important to you and something that you wanted to do related to your health. And it doesn't always have to be something that's super obvious, like going for a walk. It can be, you know, taking time to read as part of, you know, having that downtime and improving our mental health. So it can be something sort of out of the box. What we're going to do now is just have a look at the action plan and just revisit what we learned and what the action plan is all about and what that looked like. So as I just mentioned, it's really important that it's something that you want to do, not necessarily something that your doctor has told you that they want you to do or your partner thinks you should do or your neighbor, your brother, your sister, but really something that's very important to you. As I said, you know, change is hard for all of us, especially when you're living with a chronic condition. You have those extra barriers, and it can make it more challenging. And so we really need it to be important to you and to matter to you. So that's always the first step. So something you want to do. It needs to be achievable. So something that you can expect to do in the very near future. So something you would feel that you could do, you know, this week. We need it to be action specific. For example, losing weight is not an action or a behavior, but avoiding snacks between meals is. Losing weight is the result of an action. So we need it to be really specific. And that's really important so that when you set your goal, you can, you know, then follow up the next week and be very clear. Or if you're sharing that goal with a friend or your healthcare provider, you're both very much on the same page as to what that action is. We need to be able to answer these questions. So what is it that we're trying to achieve? How much? When are we going to do that? And how often? And finally, it's important that we have a confidence level of 7 or more. So we know that research shows us that when we do have that confidence level of 7 or more, we're more likely to be able to follow through with that action. It's okay to have a confidence level of less than 7. So if you do, that can tell us that there may be a few more barriers that we may need to work towards. So if you ever, you know, make an action plan and you get to that confidence level and you think, you know, it's really only about a 5, you know, you can ask yourself, you know, what are maybe some of the concerns I have? So for me, you know, is the cost and not liking the taste of the vegetables. Those are some of the barriers I had. And so working through those and trying to come up with solutions, again, whether it's through brainstorming with a friend or your partner, and working through some of those barriers. And are there any solutions right now that might help me address those concerns and to raise that confidence level? Those are some of the things we can do. So I'm just going to show you an example of my action plan and what that would look like. So I want to increase my intake of green leafy vegetables, so that's my specific action. So what I'm going to do is make a smoothie every other day during the week for one of my snacks, which has 1 cup of greens added to it. I feel this is really doable for me and will address those concerns. My confidence level is in line. So that's our review, sort of some of those tools, the main tools that we learned during the 6-week session. Are there any questions before we move on? Okay, so we're going to move on to our guest speaker. So as I mentioned, Anna Morin is a registered kinesiologist. She's a graduate of Queen's University from the School of Physical and Health Education. She specialized in clinical assessment and exercise prescription for the prevention and management of chronic conditions and injury over the course of her career. For the past 9 years, she has been working in the Primrose Family Health Center, helping patients manage their chronic conditions through increasing their physical activity safely. Anna enjoys working with people of all ages, fitness levels, and abilities. Her relaxed and friendly rapport, along with her clinical background, has created a unique approach towards health promotion, disease prevention, and injury rehabilitation. So I'll hand it over to Anna. I just see. Okay. Sorry, just taking a sec to read the questions. It looks like we're okay.
Thank you for that introduction, Rachel. As she said, my name is Anna, and I'm going to be covering the physical activity exercise portion of this session today. And as you know, physical activity is part of your self-management toolbox. So today's session is going to be, basically, we're going to review how much is enough. So how much exercise do I need to do to be able to get some of the health benefits I want to get out of it? So exercise is good for everyone, but if you have a chronic condition, the benefits of exercise are even greater for you. Our bodies need to move, and even a little bit each day can go a long way towards improving your condition. Not only will physical activity keep you healthy, but it will also improve your quality of life. So most people with chronic disease get told they need to start living more healthy to avoid, certain conditions or diseases. But there are many everyday benefits that we experience when we become more active outside of reducing our blood pressure and our cholesterol and other health indicators like those. So things such as increased enjoyment. So if you're doing something you like, improve socializing. So if the activity that you've chosen to do is with a friend, it'll help you get out of the house. It also improves your energy level. So sort of when we get that lull, sort of early afternoon, and we feel like we want to go take a nap, if you go out for a walk, you're going to notice actually that you have increased energy for the rest of the day. You'll have better capacity to cope with daily stresses. You'll see that you can sleep more soundly, and the quality of your sleep is a lot better. It also helps to improve mood and reduce anxiety. There's lots of research coming out now to show that. And it gives you a greater sense of control and self-confidence. So when you set a goal for yourself and you achieve it, it gives you nice positive feedback, and you know, how much you move in the day is something that you can control directly. And overall, it will improve your well-being. And these benefits can be experienced very early on once you become more active, which is nice. You don't have to wait to see the results of your exercise to see these benefits. And sorry, I didn't mention, so just like with Rachel, if any of you have a question, please, by all means, write it down, and I'll try and answer as many questions as I can.
I do see there's a question there, so I'm just going to leave that for the end, and then I'm going to address that.
Okay, so there are, exercise also has long-term benefits on our overall physical health, and you may have heard of some of these benefits already. So exercise strengthens your heart and lungs. Your heart actually is a muscle. So just like if you didn't, use your leg muscles, they would become deconditioned over time, and your legs wouldn't work as well. Same with our heart, so we have to challenge it to keep it strong. Exercise actually helps you control your blood pressure. After a bout of exercise, your blood pressure can actually be reduced for about 16 to 22 hours, and then it starts coming back up. It helps reduce fat and cholesterol. It decreases blood sugar levels in the similar duration that it does for blood pressure. It helps improve balance, coordination, and agility, allowing you to be at home and living independently longer. It keeps the muscles supple and strong and the joints mobile. I like to say exercise is sort of greases the wheels. It keeps the joints working better. And it strengthens the bones, which offers some protection against osteoporosis. And the wonderful thing is that all these benefits are independent of weight loss. So you do not need to lose weight to see these improvements. Exercise has a direct effect. And I like to use this chart to sort of bring that last point home. So you'll see on the left side, or the vertical part of the chart, it says increased risk of chronic diseases. So more on this chart is not good. And then you'll see there's three groups. There's a normal weight group, an overweight group, and an obese group. Within each of these groups, you'll see there's two groups. There's one that's not physically active, which is the purple color. And there's a group that is physically active, which is the yellow color. So you'll see within each group, those that are active have less risk of chronic disease. What they didn't realize they were going to find was that normal weight people who are inactive, have low fitness, are actually more at risk of chronic disease than someone who's overweight or obese but is active and physically fit. So I find this chart just helps show that it's not about weight, it's about our fitness and level of exercise. So getting started, it can be simple. Physical activity should be part of your daily routine. You know, for example, if you like to golf, but the nearest golf course is an hour away, this activity will not likely become something that's part of your daily routine because it's such a long commute. And physical activity should also be something you like to do, or at least can tolerate. If every day you get up and you dread, going to the gym, this form of exercise is not going to become part of your lifestyle. You may be able to force yourself short term, but in the long term, it won't be something you can continue. So basically, physical activity should be fun and should fit into your daily routine. So most people want to know, the golden question is how much is enough? Before we answer that question, it's important to know that the biggest change seen in health is when someone goes from not doing anything to doing something. Increasing the amount you move throughout the day has a significant impact on your mental and physical health. Activities such as vacuuming, taking the stairs, choosing to go to the bathroom on another level, standing up while folding laundry, dancing to music in your kitchen, putting the phone on speaker and marching while you talk. These are all examples of ways you can increase your activity in the day. These forms of movement are very important, though are not traditionally considered exercise. They're considered what the new term is daily physical activity, and are ways you can decrease your sedentary time, which is your sitting time, which is shown to play an important role in our health. They actually have found that someone who may be performing regular traditional exercise, if they spend the rest of their day sitting, which actually can be fairly easy to do when we think about our culture these days, the benefits of exercise can be decreased. So they're not getting the full benefits of the exercise because they're sitting so much for the rest of the day.
We do have one question here. So it says, I get really tired around 2 each afternoon. Sometimes I feel like I'll fall asleep standing up if I don't lie down. If I start exercising after lunch, will that stop happening?
I think that's a great question and actually a really good example. So a lot of clients I work with experience the exact same situation as you, and they do find if they're able to get out that front door and even take a walk around the block, their energy levels increase, and they're able to stay up for the rest of the day and go to bed at their regular bedtime, because when we do have that afternoon nap, it can impact our sleep at night as well. So yes, you can go ahead and try that. You might notice that your energy does increase. So where does exercise fit in? And what is the difference between physical activity and exercise? Well, physical activity decreases your sedentary time, and exercise increases your fitness level and performance. There are three types of exercise you'll see here. So there's stretching, there's strength training, and there's aerobic exercise. So stretching's when you're lengthening the muscle, and you're going to have improved flexibility so that you feel more mobile. Strength training builds stronger muscles so that you can meet the demands of your daily life. And aerobic exercise, which is exercise that raises your heart rate for a prolonged period of time, it increases your fitness so that you have more energy throughout the day and will experience less breathlessness. So again, back to that afternoon nap, as your fitness increases, you'll notice that your body won't crave that afternoon nap because you're going to be more fit.
I see we have another question. So it says, I have to take cat naps. Then I have the energy to exercise. Is having a short 10-minute cat nap before my daily walk acceptable?
Of course, yeah. I mean, a cat nap of 10 minutes, I don't think would impact too much, as long as we don't want to be catnapping throughout the day. As we said, we want to make sure that we're moving in the day as well as adding some planned exercise in. But of course, if you find that you need that 10-minute cat nap before you walk, by all means. So exercise. Although health benefits are derived from all physical activity participation, the most benefits are achieved from activities which increase your fitness level. Therefore, in addition to moving more in the day, as we talked about in previous slides, we also need to perform physical activities that raise our heart rate for a prolonged period of time. So today's session will focus mainly on aerobic exercise, as this form of exercise gives you the most health benefits. So it gives you the most bang for your buck. So back to that golden question, how much is enough? Well, the Canadian guidelines state that you should accumulate 150 minutes a week of moderate to vigorous intensity exercise. you can achieve this volume of exercise through adding activities up in the day as long as they're 10 minutes or longer in length. So that afternoon walk, if it's 10 minutes in length, it counts towards your physical activity minutes for the week, your exercise minutes for the week. Another example is, if you take a bus to work and you have a 15-minute brisk walk to the bus in the morning and a 15-minute brisk walk home from the bus at the end of the day, you can add those 2 walks up, and that means you walked 30 minutes that day. And if you work 5 days a week, that means you've achieved your 150 minutes a week of your moderate intensity exercise. So we don't have to do the traditional trip to the gym to get that exercise. So we can discuss the recommendations in more detail by reviewing what's called the FIT principle. So FIT stands for frequency, intensity, time, and type of exercise, and we'll go into more detail for each of them. So frequency is the number of times a week you're doing your exercise. It's recommended that you perform aerobic exercise 3 to 7 days a week, and as stated before, it can be added up in 10-minute bouts. The more frequent the exercise, the more often you're getting those positive daily benefits from activity. And for chronic conditions, they are best managed with regular doses of exercise, similar to medication. So, if you want to lower your blood pressure through exercise, regular daily exercise will help keep that blood pressure down. Intensity. It's recommended that adults perform moderate to vigorous intensity exercise, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that means now. So there are 3 different levels of intensity. There's low, moderate, and vigorous. An example of each would be, so low intensity would be, a walk, a casual walk, or raking the leaves. Moderate intensity example could be a brisk walk, or swimming laps, or going for a bike ride. And vigorous intensity are activities like aerobics, jogging, cross-country skiing. But really the intensity of the exercise depends on your fitness level and the effort you're exerting while doing that activity. So another way of measuring your intensity is through what's called the talk test. And I find this is the easiest way to measure intensity when you're exercising. So if you're working out at low intensity, it's still a planned planned exercise. We're still doing something. Your breathing rate is slightly increased, but you're still able to talk, and you would even have enough breath to sing. Okay. Moderate intensity, you can talk, but only in shorter sentences. So if you were with a friend and you were talking much like I am right now, that would be considered low intensity. So moderate intensity would be able to talk, but only in shorter sentences, and you definitely would not have enough breath to sing. Okay? And high intensity or vigorous intensity is you can't really talk very well, and you're definitely more out of breath. So the recommendation is to perform moderate to vigorous intensity exercise, but that unless you've been advised otherwise by your primary provider or if you're working with a kinesiologist. A safe level of exercise will depend on your health and the stage of your chronic condition. It's recommended you start out with low intensity. It's recommended for everyone, and then slowly build from there.
I think we do have a question. And just as Anna just mentioned, so before engaging in any new exercise, if you're not currently exercising or beginning any new activity, always check with your healthcare provider before doing so. So our question is, does walking longer than you usually do to the point of exhaustion qualify for increasing the intensity?
It does. So there's different ways you can increase intensity of exercise, and one would be the duration. Another could be the speed. Another could be adding an incline. So definitely, but you don't want to, again, exercise to the point of exhaustion, okay? So if you're exercising to that point, you're probably overdoing it a little bit. But definitely, you'll find that, if you're able to walk 10 minutes, and at the end of the 10 minutes, you feel like you could do more, by all means, walk longer, and you'll notice as the minutes go on, it'll get more and more difficult, and the intensity will be increased. So time, the recommendation is 20 to 60 minutes of continuous activity. But again, as stated before, it can be added up in 10-minute bouts of exercise, as long as that 10 minutes is a continuous exercise, such as walking. The goal is to have 150 minutes a week of exercise. You might find that when you first start out, you can only tolerate 5 minutes. But if you work up over time, you'll be able to get over that 10-minute threshold and maybe longer. And lastly, type of exercise. So as stated before, this form of aerobic exercise is the type of activity we want to do because it gives you the most health benefits. Aerobic exercise is described as any brisk exercise that promotes the circulation of oxygen through the blood and is associated with an increased rate of breathing. So some examples would be swimming, biking, walking, water aerobics, cross-country skiing, anything that's continuous in nature using large muscle groups that keeps your heart rate elevated for a prolonged period of time would be considered aerobic exercise. So exercise safety, it is more risky not to exercise than to exercise. As long as you start out slowly, and again, if there are any health concerns, speaking with your primary provider before starting. You always want to ensure that you warm up and cool down after exercise. Warm up or cool down is usually around 5 to 10 minutes, depending on what your body needs and your health status. This time allows your body to adjust and prepare for the demands that you're going to be asking of it. And the cool down allows your heart rate to come back down so that you don't get any lightheadedness or stopped too abruptly. And you may also want to stretch after your warm-up or after your cool-down, and it is a wonderful way of keeping your joints mobile, but you don't have to. Okay, so a warm-up or a cool-down would just be a slower version of what you're planning to do for exercise. So if you're planning on going for a walk, you just want to make sure that you start out at a slower pace, allow your body to adapt, and then you can slowly pick up the speed as you go, and then at the end of the walk, slowly reduce your pace and allow your heart rate to come back down. You want to watch for signs that you're doing too much. If you cannot talk while exercising, you're pushing yourself too hard. Stop exercising and sit down if you experience shortness of breath, nausea, dizziness, or have any chest pain. If these symptoms do not go away after a few minutes, you do want to report to emergency. If the symptoms go away but return each time you exercise, you definitely should make a visit with your primary provider. Okay, so again, we want to do brisk exercise, but never to the point where we're getting short of breath or having any of these other symptoms. If you feel exhausted the day after you exercise, you may need to shorten your exercise time or decrease the intensity. And over time, you'll be able to tolerate more. So again, it's just important to slowly increase your duration and speed. If your health status changes, you'll want to speak with your primary provider or registered kinesiologist before you continue with your activity program, just to ensure it's still safe and appropriate for you. Also, if you have a temporary illness, such as a cold or fever, it's best to wait until you feel better, allow your body time to recover. And if you have any medication changes, again, you want to discuss with your primary provider or kinesiologist whether adjustments need to be made to your exercise program, as it might impact your exercise tolerance. So other considerations, well, it's already been addressed. As I said, you want to ensure you have a warm-up and a cool-down. You also want to ensure you have appropriate footwear, especially you know, if we haven't been exercising, our body, our knees, our feet, our hips aren't used to, you know, the weight that's going to be put through them. So we want to ensure that we have shoes that are meant for walking or running, that are supportive and have good cushioning. If you're going to be regularly active, the recommendation is to try and update your footwear every 6 months. You also want to ensure that you're drinking enough water throughout the day, before, during, and after exercise. Particularly if your exercise is going to be longer in duration, you want to have some water there to drink as you go along. It also helps prevent those calf cramps and foot cramps that you might experience. And the last piece here is pedometers. So some of you may have heard of them before. These are devices that you can wear on your belt or your pants, and it actually measures the number of steps you take in a day. And pedometers can be good feedback and good motivation. The nice thing about them is that they monitor not only your exercise, you'll see your step count go up, but they also monitor whether you've increased your physical activity in the day, so whether you're moving more in the day. There are guidelines as to how many steps you're supposed to get in a day, which is 10,000 steps or more, but that's actually quite a difficult number to get up to. And any improvement from your baseline is a success for sure.
See, we have another question. So how can I balance muscle strengthening exercises and aerobic exercise without risking loss of muscle cartilage from the aerobic?
So aerobic exercise would never cause you to lose muscle mass. It might actually, if you're not active at all, increase a bit of muscle mass and strength just by starting aerobic exercise. Some aerobic exercises, depending on your joint health, if they're high impact or prolonged, could potentially cause some knee pain or hip pain. But if you do shorter bouts of aerobic exercise, or so more like 10 minutes, adding them up a couple of times in the day, or if you do lower impact exercise such as aquafit or biking, it shouldn't have too much of a negative effect on your cartilage. But overall, aerobic exercise will actually help maintain your joint integrity and be good for your joints. I think it sort of has a two-part question. So how can I balance muscle strengthening exercise and aerobic exercise? You know, we're talking here today about how aerobic exercise is where you want to have your focus to start. But once you have your aerobic exercise routine established and you want to add in some strength exercises, by all means, doing both is better than doing one. So in summary, being physically active allows you to maintain quality of life as you get older. It enables you to preserve your independence to perform daily activities such as buying groceries. It can also enrich your life by making it easier to do such things as play with your children or grandchildren and enjoy the outdoors. You may choose to focus on adding more movement in your day by taking the stairs, or you may look at starting an exercise routine such as walking to work or walking to the bus stop. Either way, small changes make a big difference over time. Start by making conscious, active choices in your daily life and build from there, because every little bit does count. If you're worried about starting an exercise program, I recommend making an appointment with your primary provider or a registered kinesiologist. They will be able to review what level of exercise is safe for your condition specifically and give you more personalized guidelines. And that's it for today. So again, if you have any questions, by all means, write them out, and if we have time, we'll answer them now, or Rachel will.
I just have a few more things before we end the webinar. So yeah, if there's any questions, I'll just keep my eye on that pane for a few minutes. So thank you so much, Anna, for joining us. And again, we've given you a lot of information. And it can be overwhelming and intimidating oftentimes if you're starting a physical activity program. So certainly, I mean, reach out to your healthcare team. Often, if you're in a family health team or a community health center, they are equipped with someone like Anna, like a registered kinesiologist or a physiotherapist, or someone that can certainly guide you on your physical activity and make sure it's safe and make sure you're comfortable and confident in doing that. And as Anna said, you know, we want it to be enjoyable at the end of the day. Hope you do more refreshers. We are actually having another webinar in March, so I'm going to send that invitation out tomorrow morning. And that's going to feature Dr. Yoni Friedhoff, who's an expert in obesity and diet. So he manages the Bariatric Medical Institute here in Ottawa. And he's on TV quite often, and he has a book called The Diet Fix. So he's a terrific resource, and he's agreed to do that presentation for us. So he'll be joining us in March, and I'll send that out. We will send out the presentation, and I believe we can actually send out the recording as well, just so you can refer back. Again, if anyone wants the copy of the reusable other action plan or the decisional balance tool that we use, I'm happy to send that to you. So if you can email that back to me, rdavidson@briere.org, and I'll send my email out as well. And thank you for attending. We're also going to be sending out a really, really brief survey. So you can just click on the link. It's electronic, and we really appreciate that feedback. This is something new that we're doing in this format, and so your feedback is really valuable to us. It helps shape our future sessions and our future programming. And we want to make sure that it's really relevant for you, because that's what we're here for, and to continue to support you. So we appreciate you filling out that survey. It just takes a few minutes at most. And thank you for joining us. I think we're okay for questions. There was one question I'm just going to go back to. So it says, what do you suggest when you plan daily some action but then don't do it? Is it something you want, but then when the time comes, you choose for the other? For example, when there's snacks offered at work every day, and you try not to have them, but you end up having it anyways. Any suggestions around this? Again, it's very hard, especially when there's that temptation all around us. So again, that's something that you could really maybe brainstorm about with a partner or your colleague or a friend. And, you know, again, reevaluating how important is this change to you. You know, maybe it's that you can have one of those snacks a few days a week instead of each day. You know, is that something that's more reasonable for you? So sort of brainstorming around that, and maybe doing that decisional balance to see what are some of the barriers of what's happening when you're trying to make that change. Is it really important to you at this time? And then working through there and doing some of that problem solving around maybe something that works for you, you know, whether it's having the snack 1 or 2 days a week or once a week, or whatever is realistic for you and important to you. That's really what matters. And perhaps if that's too challenging at this time, maybe there's another goal that might be more appropriate and achievable for you at this time. So certainly I'd recommend just having a look at that. So I think that's it for us today. I don't see any other questions. We'll send out the recording and that survey to you. So thank you for attending today.